Recently, Joe Rogan criticized myself and Project Veritas, and I'd like to respond. First, it seems Joe Rogan struggles to remember my name.
The guy, what the fuck is his name? That guy that's always doing the undercover shit. The Veritas stuff, that guy, Project Veritas.
It's just interesting because previously he did not struggle to remember my name.
There's all Project Veritas is this guy, James O'Keefe, the O'Keefe podcast.
Okay.
The Project Veritas guy.
Yeah.
And there's been videos of, what is that, Project Veritas? Where that guy his employees got undercover footage of Twitter employees talking about that kind of stuff.
So it's just interesting to me, but let's move on. Rogan seems to doubt the veracity of the ballot video with the guy with all the ballots in his car, Liban, but doesn't seem to doubt the veracity of the Twitter shadow banning videotapes that we obtained in 2018. Listen to this.
James O'Keefe. He's got a new one now about Ilhan Omar.
The ballots in the car.
Yeah, the ballots in the car. And he's got these guys saying, look at all these ballots, look at all these ballots. But you got to go with that guy. You got to go, okay. Then he also catches shit that's real.
Yes.
Like he caught those people on Twitter,
Yes.
the Twitter executives talking about how they shadow ban people.
Yeah.
How does the Twitter video, and by the way, he's referring to Abhinav Vedrevu, this clip right here.
One strategy is to shadow ban so that you have ultimate control. The idea of a shadow ban is that you ban someone but they don't know they've been banned because they keep posting but no one sees their content.
So that's the Twitter shadow banning clip, but Rogan goes meh when it pertains to this Snapchat video of Liban in his car. Again, he posted it to his Snapchat in early July. It's a real actual videotape recorded by Liban himself. Wasn't recorded by us. It wasn't obtained through the element of pretense or deception. It was actually a more pure form of obtaining the information than undercover subterfuge. So why is it that the Twitter video you like, Joe Rogan, but the Snapchat video recorded by Liban you don't like? Explain to me why one is different than the other. They're both incontrovertible video evidence. Is it because you think there's more merit in exposing bias at Twitter, that there's less merit in exposing corruption or illegalities as it pertains to ballot harvesting? That doesn't make sense to me. Then Joe Rogan says this.
So it's like whenever someone can't be straight with you and they have little tricks and they have stunts.
The ballot harvesting in the car was not obtained through a stunt or a trick or a device or any deceit or undercover reporting like we did with the Twitter investigation when we set up a fake Jobs Box account and did a human resources sting to obtain the meeting with Abhinav Vedrevu. The videotape in the car with Liban was obtained from his Snapchat account. No tricks, no devices, yet you're talking to me about tricks. How does that work? Then Rogan seems to ask how the media perceives this Minnesota ballot harvesting investigation.
What is the general consensus? Like, how is the media treating this Ilhan Omar thing?
When I looked today, because I saw it yesterday, the initial response I saw was probably more from like liberal sides for being like, this is just to fog the conversation because of all the tax stuff that just came out.
If you read the article carefully and you can see the text in the article, they didn't actually certify that we did this to coincide with the Sunday New York Times tax article. They just assumed that we did. In fact, we made the decision to release the Minnesota ballot harvesting investigation prior, and we have evidence of that, and the New York Times just speculated. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is, when we ask about what the mainstream media thinks about what we do, we're kind of feeding into the very thing that we're fighting, aren't we? Now, the New York Times has come out with this ridiculous headline. It was a, quote, disinformation campaign. You could see the graphic right here, disinformation campaign. And the evidence the New York Times uses to claim it's a disinformation campaign, that we did a media embargo with social media influencers like the My Pillow guy, Mike Lindell, ahead of time. It is for that reason I met with a guy who has a huge audience that they claim that these tapes of all these ballot harvesters doing this illegal stuff is disinformation. They're justifying an embargo as disinformation. That, Joe Rogan, is how the media is responding, and that is precisely why we can't trust the media or sit on the sidelines and complain or wait for our media brothers and sisters to tell us the information that we should be consuming. And Joe Rogan, this New York Times disinformation headline was recycled. It was recycled by local TV in Minnesota.
But all of this fits the Project Veritas MO, according to Stanford researchers, who say it appears to be a coordinated disinformation campaign.
Recycled by Vox, it was recycled by Salon, it was recycled by MSNBC and many others. Indeed. And then young Jamie, the producer, says that maybe we should take this with a grain of salt due to my history.
And that, like, take this with a grain of salt because of his history.
Yeah, but it takes
But
time
that's-
to
yeah, so-
it takes time to gather up that kind of information. I don't buy that it's just when the tax stuff came out.
Well, I'm glad you don't buy that because our timing was completely coincidental and we decided the day before. But you have to understand that all of these media apparatus, or what your friend Eric Weinstein referred to as the DISC, the Distributed Idea Suppression Complex, does not allow the information to break through.
Whatever the ABC News function is that stopped that story from running, that might have saved people from having terrible incidents in their lives, I don't know. Whatever that thing was, is my enemy. That's the DISC. And we have to slip the DISC in order to save our society. That's basically my take.
No major media institution reported on that cash transaction. The New York Times edited out of their article the cash transaction in exchange for the voter registration form that you see right here. Ding, ding. They just doctored that out of the article because it was too manifestly damning. So they lied by omission. They didn't include the fact that having more than 3 ballots was a violation of state law. They didn't include USC 10307, which says that it's a felony, a federal felony, to pay someone in exchange for their future ballot. They didn't include that information, and then we sit around waiting for the media to do something about it. Well, guess what, Joe Rogan? We are the media, not them. We are the ones that they now have to respond to. And if we don't do the work, nobody will do the work. Because anybody who does the work is viciously and savagely attacked by people who buy ink by the barrel. And people want to drink out of that poisoned chalice. They want to be praised and liked by the New York Times, so they don't do this work. So it's up to us. So when you ask questions like,
What is the general consensus? Like, how is the media treating this Ilhan Omar thing?
when you ask questions like this, you are feeding into the very thing that you're ostensibly fighting. That's what you're doing. So don't ask those questions. Ask about the incontrovertible videotaped evidence that we have. If you want to say that it's fake or staged, then say that. Don't infer it or insinuate it. Go out and say it. Because I can tell you, I swear to God, and I'd swear under oath, that the footage that you see here is real.
If that's not real,
Right.
and this turns out to be bullshit, there should be a punishment for that.
Absolutely.
So here's the thing. A lot of people have wanted to punish us for supposedly publishing things that are not real or false or fake or defamatory, and they've sued us. And Joe, we have won every single lawsuit Project Veritas has litigated. We have not only won the lawsuits, but in many cases, they've paid us after we've won. Like this guy in his law firm, Steve Wentz, who is a union president in Kansas. We recorded him in a bar saying this.
You really think I'm a motherfucker? Son, go for it. And I'll give you the first shot.
You've done this with students?
I've done this more than once. And I said, but I guarantee you, I will kick your fucking ass.
And we won. Or this woman, Kim Korber. We recorded her in California saying this.
Texas got upset about it, and they wanted to have their founders. They want to pound the founders in, and it's like, come on. The dead white guys did not create this country. It was a whole bunch of different kinds of people.
And we won. And a judge ordered her pay us because we won an anti-SLAPP motion. I think it's important you compare our track record with that of CNN, the New York Times, and all of these supposed journalists that we keep asking what they think about our stories. Because our track record is unbelievably accurate, probably more accurate than any other media corporation. In fact, I can't think, and probably neither can you, any media corporation which has not settled a lawsuit. So why are we branded as the organization which is inaccurate or makes stuff up? I bet you can't name one thing in the last 8 or 9 years since our incorporation in April of 2011 that we've made up. Joe Rogan, name one thing that we have made up.
But if it turns out to be true, there should be punishment as well.
Well, I would certainly think that the incontrovertible video evidence of the guy with ballots all over his lap, which is a state crime, and the federal felony of the cash transaction on tape that's probably has a more likelihood of being true than all the people saying it didn't happen. People will say a lot of things. They'll say whatever they need to say when they're caught on tape.
Because I have intelligent friends that sent me the Omar thing, and they're like, "This is very disturbing." I don't know if it's true. I mean, it was funny because he was tweeting out that she said something about how voter fraud is like there's like the numbers of voter fraud are so minuscule, it's like 0.0006%. Yeah, and then he tweets out this stuff about her and voter fraud. Right.
I was referring to when Ilhan Omar put out the tweet, and there you see it right there, that this is very, very infinitesimal. And I say, well, this tweet isn't going to age well. But when you expose the sacred cows, when you report on information that the director of the FBI says can't happen or doesn't happen, that the media apparatus says there's no evidence, and when you show evidence of something that the powers that be say does not happen, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that I'm going to be unscathed? Do you think they're all going to say, thank you very much, we were wrong? People don't just roll over and give it to you. They attack. They lie about this. They say it can't happen. And in that regard, they're the conspiracy theorists, not me. Because when you can see the people's faces, like here, when you can see the people's faces doing the cash transaction, there's Siad. When you can see Liban's own Snapchat account, when you can see his face in all the ballots, that's actually reality. That actually happened. What journalists write in articles after the fact is just hyperbole and obfuscation. That's just words. That doesn't matter. That doesn't mean anything. It's their opinion. It's conjecture. So again, rock beats scissors, videotape beats lies, and a builder can build faster than a destroyer can destroy.
The one thing that, I mean, watching the video, just watching it, it's obviously highly edited. So like, you can't say it's not an edited video, and that doesn't take a lot of things away because you have to edit the video.
You kind of have to edit, right? But because it's got to be small.
You don't know who the people are that are being covered up. I think when I was reading through people that are like, I think Newsweek was digging into each piece of it today, and like, I don't know that they could verify everything because they weren't saying that this was necessarily false.
Well, that's a really logical fallacy, young Jamie, because if the news media can't verify, they're not willing to verify it. They're not willing to substantiate it. They edited out of the article the actual criminal activity, and then they say it's unsubstantiated. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And credit here to Joe Rogan, because he rightfully points out that everything's edited. You have to edit things for time. That you can't play all the raw information, nor would you want to, because oftentimes you have to protect your sources. This is the paragon of investigative reporting. The fact that journalists attack us for protecting our sources, when we actually show, you can hear the voices, sometimes we blur the faces, but you can hear the voices, you can hear the inflection and intonation in the voices. You can't hear the inflection and intonation in Bob Woodward's sources because he doesn't tell you who his sources are. Bob Woodward quotes someone quoting somebody else, and he puts those in quotation marks, and he calls that journalism. So if that can win a Pulitzer Prize, I don't understand why so-called editing, I don't understand why we're being attacked for the so-called editing.
But why would, if someone was doing something that illegal, why would they be like, who are you, strange man with camera? Come look, I break law. I break law everywhere.
So that's an interesting point. King Liban 1 did this on a Snapchat, and Rogan says, why was he wanting to do this? Well, here's a little insight. Liban actually tweeted, I'm famous. They're so arrogant because they will never be held accountable, Joe Rogan. Nobody will hold them accountable. Nobody will be arrested. I've heard that the DOJ can't even enforce this law or these laws before Election Day, so they can act with impunity because they're part of a system, the Department of Justice, the Democrat media complex, that will never hold them to account, and they know that. So in this case, Liban just bragged on Snapchat, albeit a private video, albeit he pulled it down, we captured it, but he bragged because he knew he could get away with it. Fast forward to Fox 9, they asked him what happened, and he just said whatever he needed to say to rationalize his behavior.
Did you ever give people money in exchange for a vote?
No, never.
Did you ever tell them how to vote?
No, never.
He said whatever he needed to say. He got a platform. They didn't ask me for comment. They interviewed the guy in the car with all the ballots. These people do this. They act with impunity, and they're never held accountable. That's why the people are on tape bragging about all the fraud they're committing.
What is James O'Keefe's deal? He just goes, I'm just going to figure out a fun conspiracy that's happening. Like, he goes, like, how does he get into these things? He gets a tip.
Well, I'll tell you exactly how we get into these things. I don't say I want to go to Minnesota. I want to infiltrate the Ilhan Omar ballot harvesting community. That's not what we do. Sources come to us. People come to us because they have nowhere else to go. They don't know where to go. In fact, one of the sources told us we can't go to the New York Times. We can't go to the Washington Post. They'll sell us out in a heartbeat. In fact, one of the biggest stories we ever did, the Amy Robach, Jeffrey Epstein footage, and you remember this clip here.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story.
That person inside ABC News came to Project Veritas because they didn't trust anybody else, because no one would stand by the reporting. No one would do justice to the story. We don't just sit around and throw darts at a board. Sources come to us.
And then he goes, let's just get some cameras in there.
I don't know.
It's like a YouTube prank show fused with like political exposés.
The problem is the Twitter stuff. The problem is the stuff where he actually did catch executives catch employees that were talking about how they make it so that conservative voices don't get heard. Might be rigged. He might be the kind of guy that you hire to do something like this because he's a crazy guy who works for a cab company.
Right.
And he doesn't give a fuck and he doesn't know there's a camera on him.
He doesn't care.
I just think it's crazy that people will come up with any explanation. They will conjure up any reason why what they're seeing is not real. And I think, Joe Rogan, you should practice some introspection for a moment. Just anything but what you're seeing is real. When, again, the paragon of journalism is for people to quote other people and for us to believe it. When what you see, a guy on Snapchat covered with absentee ballots, a cash transaction, nope, there has to be some other explanation for that. Let's the default be question what we're seeing when we don't question everything we're reading. And I think the right thing for you to do is to put me on your show to actually talk to you about this, not interview everybody else about our journalism. And I look forward to being on your show to talk about this and much more.